this does feel like an enterprise and large org play, particularly in terms of the benefits it can drive, in terms of knowledge bases and other data sources that you can pull in that Copilot will then reference and surface to agents and also surface information to customers direct.
Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we are going deep on Dynamics 365 Contact Center. We're getting a perspective from Chris Goodwill, who works at Symity and is a real specialist in all things contact center. So he's come up through the team space, a lot of the ecosystem solutions he's worked with, and he's now taken a real deep dive look at Dynamics 365 Contact Center. So great perspective from him on how Dynamics 365 Contact Center looks, how the licensing works, some of the consumption parts of the licensing, and also which customers it fits with, where it's a good use case, and how it compares to the ecosystem contact centers as well. So many thanks to Chris for joining the pod, and many thanks to Logi, who are the sponsor of this podcast. Really appreciate their support. On with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Exciting topic this week. We're going to talk all about Dynamics 365 Contact Center. So a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, we had Alan Ross from the product group engineering talking all about it. Now we're going to get a perspective from kind of partner land and customer land. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so Chris Goodwill, and I'm Strategic Partner Manager and Solution Specialist at Symity, and I'm focused principally on contact centers, so in the Microsoft world only.
Awesome. So you bring a really interesting perspective. You're one of the people I talk to kind of decode some of this, because you've obviously come from Teams world, contact center world. You've looked at and worked with lots of the ecosystem contact centers in Teams. So you've got a perspective on Teams and native and Q's app. You've got a perspective on the ecosystem contact centers, the Landis, the 10-4s, the Luwares, and you've been going really deep on DCCP, Dynamics Contact Center Platform before, and now Dynamics 365 Contact Center.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've had this conversation before, probably like a year ago, maybe even longer, but been waiting really for Microsoft to pull the trigger on a native solution. And they, through evolution, then they've reached this point today. They started as far back as, I'm just going to look at my slide I've got here, it's like 2003 was the customer care framework that was built. That was then turned into the unified service desk that was a bolt-on for Dynamics CRM. From that, Dynamics turned into Dynamics 365. As a suite, they had the customer service product that was spun up, and then Omnichannel was added to that. We then saw the framework digital contact center platform, which I know we talked about before, and we talked about it with Alan, like the kind of origins, and that was very much a framework for building a contact center solution through the acquisition of Nuance and their AI capabilities, particularly in the IVR space. You then had all kind of tools really to be able to build something. But Dynamics 365 Contact Center is in itself a CCaaS play, which is completely new for Microsoft. Yes, it's got all the origins and there's all these bits and pieces that kind of have built it. But with the investment they've put into Copilot, for the last couple of years, and this real drive forward, by making that a pivotal part of the product and also decoupling it from Dynamics 365 CRM, then it is a true CCaaS play. And it's really interesting. We would start of the year, I was spending lots of time on DCCP. And then sure enough, like the announcement came for Dynamics 365 Contact Center. Part of me does think that it could almost be called something else, though. The Dynamics 365
It feels like Copilot Contact Center is the biggest marketing opportunity. Like that would have just ridden the wave of we are the AI first contact center. I'm guessing the Dynamics team, quite rightly, like their team's name in the product name. But I agree with you. The first conversation I always have to have is you don't need to be a Dynamics customer, which sounds weird when it's Dynamics 365 Contact Center.
Yeah, and for partners entering into the space and spinning up practice or diversifying, then that is a conversation you're going to have to kind of demystify what it actually is. So it can be headless. It can just be a contact center in its own right. It doesn't have to be plumbed into a CRM. Equally, it's decoupled from Dynamics 365 as a CRM. So the benefit to clients and for partners as well is if a customer's got their own CRM or alternative kind of, if they're using Salesforce or ServiceNow, there's connectors for that. So yeah, that's available to them, but they don't have to have Dynamics 365. And I suppose that's something we're going to have to explain to the marketplace a little bit.
As you say, this is two big changes from kind of the strategies of old, which were kind of half a toe in, half a toe out kind of scenario. Like there are dedicated SKUs, so you can literally buy the CCaaS as a product, and we'll talk about some of the licensing and some of the fun consumption things there in a minute. And decoupling it from Dynamics. I think Dynamics CRM has 8-10% of the market, something like that. So immediately their addressable market, if they were tied to a Dynamics customer, is much smaller. Whereas now, theoretically, Microsoft and partners like Symity can go after any customer. It doesn't matter what their legacy systems, or even, as Alan said in his podcast a few weeks ago, they might have multiple CRMs in play. They might be M&A, they might be acquisition. This is a more flexible platform to bring in a new world, AI first, omni-channel contact center that can integrate and overlay with the existing products in play.
Yeah, I think there's a number of scenarios. I've been trying to map them out actually to try and make sense for ourselves and also for account directors and technical specialists who work here. A situation where a customer's got a non-Microsoft telephony platform and is non-Microsoft in themselves, that's going to be a real low play. But where there is that investment in Microsoft 365 and they've got Teams telephony already, they are now Microsoft able to address without going to their ISV kind of ecosystem. So that ecosystem has developed, really since Link, hasn't it? You and I know that.
Yeah.
And from Link to Skype and then for Teams. So these ISVs now have got a direct compete with Microsoft.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because it absolutely is a compete, and particularly as a Dynamics 365 contact center, it feels very enterprisey to me in terms of its feature set and integration requirements, but you can buy it from one seated up. So theoretically, a few hundred seat customer could be choosing between ecosystem and Dynamics, but the approach is quite different, isn't it? Ecosystem is tightly into the single pane of Teams glass, single experience, whereas Dynamics is a completely standalone contact center built on the same foundations as Teams, but its own client, its own experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll make conversations with clients really interesting. I think for partners, they've really got to distill. They've got to understand the requirements of that client, what their needs are, what they want to really drive. Obviously, budget's going to come into it, and price has become really competitive in the CCaaS space. But if it's a real small requirement, then something from, Luware and Anywhere, who we work with, might be more appropriate. This does feel like an enterprise and large org play, particularly in terms of benefits it can drive, in terms of knowledge bases and other data sources that you can pull in that Copilot will then reference and surface to agents and also surface information to customers direct. So it is going to have a requirement like Copilot in itself of having, clean data, well-maintained data, secure data, etc. So, but yeah, there's
price point wise, from a licensing point of view, you've got a better eye on this market than me, but the $120 seat price is at the higher end compared to the ecosystem vendors. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say so. So the digital and voice combined license is $110, and then the voice or digital on its own, if the customer just wanted it to be voice only, is $95. You've then got the complexity of you can have an add-on if the customer's got customer service already, and there's a dedicated customer service premium, Dynamics 365 customer service premium license, which gives them the CRM and gives them the contact center functionality. But at that kind of price point, I wasn't surprised, to be honest, based on kind of how things looked in terms of building a contact center through DCCP. But there's probably better value for lower need contact centers. But for a customer who is invested in Microsoft, wants to continue to leverage that, if they are a Dynamics 365 CRM customer already, an absolute no-brainer for them. Equally, if they're looking to integrate their existing CRMs and data sources, then yeah, this is going to be a good play for them. Something to bear in mind, though, you mentioned it, is the actual licensing costs. So beyond those core licensing, there is consumption licensing. So you get a base amount of, for example, like record routing. Just looking again for a reference because there's so many different ones.
Yeah, you've got to.
I know.
The good thing is, like the audience on the podcast is like 90% audio, like 5% video. So to all the audio listeners, you just sound like you're reading off the top of your head, Chris.
Great. I sound like I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, recording routing, for example, you get 50 record routes per user per month. And that excludes chats, calls, and text messages. So, and that is pooled on a tenant basis. But anything beyond that, then you do get into additional licensing. Intelligent voice bot minutes, again, you get 2,000 minutes per user per month. Again, anything beyond that. And call intelligence minutes is 6,000 minutes per month.
And
so
you
Symity,
also pay consumption based on routing minutes in, don't you? So you either buy phone numbers from Microsoft or you bring direct routing, Azure direct routing. Azure charges you, ACS, Azure Communication Services charges you for routing calls as well. So there are a lot of, to understand your total cost of ownership, an ongoing cost, there's quite a lot of consumption piece there. It's not stopping at the $110.
No, and that does present challenges for partners. We've spent some time recently building a pricing calculator, and it's surprising how complex it is. So, in the Dynamics 365 world, in the business applications world, which is new for Symity, we're a modern work partner. We have all the wealth of experience in contact center. We've stepped into the biz apps world. And to be honest, Dynamics licensing has always not been quite as straightforward as probably the customers would like or the partners would like. So yeah, there's this complexity. A colleague like Marcus Walder was saying, why haven't they done the sort of Amazon Connect model where it's just consumption, and that's it. So it's interesting. I think we'll see it evolve. Certainly in terms of the actual capacities that are provided, it's going to be adequate for some businesses, but where they're really driving heavy on things like kind of intelligent voice bot side of things, they may need to license more. And we've seen that with some of the ISV solutions where it's been based on, say, concurrent dialogues, and you need to kind of at least predict.
Yeah.
I think the difficult thing is there, thinking about a conversation with a client today, is they may not know how much they need because they're not doing it already. This is new to them. So yeah, there's going to be some scaling there. And obviously in terms of the platform, it's built to scale. It's not going to,
and again, that speaks to,
issues.
In my head, that speaks to enterprise use cases, right? Because when you're talking to big orgs, they're like, cool, there's a bit of consumption here and there, fine, it's part of our total budget. Whereas if you're talking to like a 20-seat opportunity, they're like, well, wait a minute, I'm going to try and make you understand to the minute what it's all going to cost me. It's like, well, we can't really, because who knows how many calls you get, how much AI you're going to use. It's very, I'm guessing, you tell me, but it's probably hard to definitively predict on a consumption model.
Yeah, it's going to be not necessarily a moving target, but it's going to be complex, really. And I think, we're talking about the ISV partner ecosystem, and Symity, do partner with Anywhere 365 and Luware. I'm very happy with those as the tier one partners. And we can predict and forecast costs relatively accurately with those. And that makes it, that conversation with the client makes it easier. And then thinking about bidding and tenders, then where price is pivotal, then how are we going to be able to position this? Again, if it's in a large-scale enterprise organization who are exhibiting, they want the investment in Microsoft to continue and they have dynamics, it's going to require some time for the messaging to seep out into the kind of client space for them to understand it, and it not just be this solution over there. It wants to be forefront in their mind if it's going to be successful for Microsoft.
Yeah, I guess a lot of those big customers have a pre-committed spend as well in a lot of cases, so they're like mentally they're like, we've already attributed this much spend on Azure. I'm guessing some of that can be spent on these either Copilot Studio type scenarios or as Azure scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In terms of the opportunities for partners, though, I kind of spoke about Symity. We're not a business applications partner, and we do have a partnership with Expedition, actually, who are a dynamics specialist. And so for us, actually forming that partnership where there's anything beyond the contact center as a requirement, then we're going to be able to draw on that knowledge. Because thinking about, a partner who is modern work only, then this can be quite daunting for them to step into it. I don't think it should be. I think it's just a question of being able to apply the knowledge that you've got from Microsoft Teams telephony and contact center into this new world. And actually, it is a good opportunity for partners because it is going to require a reasonable amount of consultancy. And that's, again, where it's going to sit into the large and enterprise side of things, rather than just a kind of plug and play.
Yeah, that's quite an important separation, isn't it? I mean, I've done webinars with Luware and where we've done a deployment live on the webinar and had it all working and ringing like you can you can
in minutes,
super fast, because it's all a giant SaaS and it's relatively easy. Whereas Dynamics 365 Contact Center doesn't feel like that. Obviously, I'm sure you can set it up in a reasonable amount of time, but the voice routing is a separate thing because you're not using Teams. But more importantly, all the configuration and all the potential to take huge advantage of it relies on that AI extensibility, integration into line of business stuff. That's really the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is where partners who are skilled are going to add real value. I was thinking about and have written about recently sort of the intelligent kind of chatbot side of things. So one of the pivotal pillars really is delivering this kind of driving self-service. So where possible, in fact, there was a couple of case studies I was reading this week from local government organisations where they have pivoted to essentially like 90% in terms of their digital services that they can provide. That's increased CSAT and also reduced the workload on agents. Well, that's exactly what Dynamics 365 Contact Center is going to bring. So with Nuance, the kind of AI-driven IVR, you're going to have a case where you can pretty much, if you're plumbed into the right knowledge bases, you're going to be able to answer a lot of questions for the customer already. Where it can't, it will then use the AI side of things to measure things like sentiment analysis and call intent to be able to, and subject and topic. So it's looking at the call summarization of that conversation to then be able to route it to the correct agent.
Yeah.
So the efficiency there is going to, if you think about it at the moment, we don't have platforms that do that work really well. Copilot as the engine in Dynamics 365 is going to look at all of those things, and in terms of kind of workforce management and kind of planning of agent skills, it's going to deliver it to the right person.
Do you think some of that, I'm seeing some of the ecosystem, we keep saying ecosystem contact centers, I guess for anybody coming in more on the Dynamics side, so Teams certified contact centers,
yes,
they're doing AI stuff as well. Are you seeing some of that AI, because I guess they have access to the API models and the API keys in Azure and everything else? Some of that cleverness will probably come to those as well, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that ecosystem won't go away. It will develop. We might see some consolidation in the marketplace with some of the smaller players. There might be acquisitions. I think I saw like Puzzle have acquired an AI business. I think I saw that from the CEO today. And same way, Anywhere 365 have acquired Deep Desk. And so that AI capability is being built into those. ISV kind of ecosystem offerings. And we've worked with customers with Anywhere 365, for example, where they have built chatbot solutions. I think the attractive thing with the Dynamics 365 contact center is that it's all part of just one solution. It's all in there, even though it is bits that are driving it together in terms of nuance.
I guess you're investing
Copilot.
in Microsoft's commitment and innovation in that market, right? They're going to inherit all the AI benefits as they come because they're using their own tech, obviously.
Yeah, it's it's really exciting. I mean, seeing stepping back in time, we'd have been thinking about how to, go back 2 years, like translate a call, transcribe a call, and then what are we going to do with it? We're going to inject it into like a CRM. That's all pretty seamless now with this platform. It's not beyond the realms of kind of capabilities at all. It's going to be commonplace. So, a chatbot conversation. So again, I'm going to use councils just because they're in my head at the moment, but councils in terms of like environmental, highways, kind of waste, my bin's not being collected, benefits, all of these things can be answered relatively easily by the chatbot. So, okay, chatbots have been around for a while. That conversation gets more complex, requires more information. You then got the handoff of that information, that case summarization to the human agent, so they can instantly see what the customer wants. So it's not repeating. We're not having to repeat what we want to the human agent, which has been a bit of a disconnection that we've had in terms of customer service. So you can see how time's going to be saved, and you can see how CSAT's going to go up, and also hopefully the agent's going to be happier. If you flip it to the agent side of things, they are trying to help their customer. They can leverage Copilot like we can today to be able to surface information from the organization, to be able to quickly answer those questions that the customer's asking, rather than the "can I call you back" situation. So there's twofold benefits there: one customer facing and one internal customer facing, if you like, the agents. So hopefully we're going to see CSAT, kind of improve across the board. And that will be the case with the ecosystem solutions as well. So, rather than, oh my goodness, it's a chatbot, it's going to be, there's going to be answers that we want.
Our expectations are going to get a lot higher of having played with things like Copilot and ChatGPT of what a chatbot should be now. The early days of them were very, very on the rails, very, I can only answer these 6 questions. It should theoretically get a lot better. Yeah,
and there's I came across a new video actually on from Microsoft on the customer service side, like multi-lingual chatbot. It's going to be able to recognize language the same way as the nuance kind of IVR can as well. And instead of having separate instances for a chatbot where it's in a different language in terms of what's connected to it, people are going to be able to converse, converse smoothly with the chatbot. So again, you could put that in any situation, but thinking about a council where it's got citizens and they're from a diverse backgrounds and speak different languages, then a council's going to be able to provide a much wider service digitally. So it's customers. A bit out there, but you've probably seen the more natural voice variants, which have only hit the market in preview from OpenAI. That you can see where that's going, that it's becoming much more genuinely plausible to have a conversation with a bot. And then you put in multilingual and suddenly you could have a virtual translator scenario. It's all very exciting what the possibilities are there. Yeah, definitely. And this is only the start of it. I think we're going to see, I don't know, in terms of language and geos, then there's some availability issues at the moment, but it's all roadmapped. And for the majority of the languages, they're beyond the core languages available today. Then the roadmap that Microsoft have shown, most of those are available by the end of the year. And we're just going to see more and more feature-rich experience come to the contact center. Awesome. So as we wrap up, putting you kind of a little bit on the spot, if a customer comes to you and says, am I
well suited to what's in the box with Teams and the new Queues app? Obviously, we're waiting a little bit longer for that, but I know you've got some visibility of it. Am I an ecosystem contact center use case, or am I a Dynamics contact center use case? How would you help them understand where they might fit?
I think it's going to come down to their appetite for embracing the new technologies that we've talked about. For a range of organisations, they are not going to have data that they can draw on. For example, it might be relatively straightforward in terms of voice only. It could be omnichannel. It could have some other, they could be using social media. They could be using a chatbot, etc. That's relatively simple. For simpler situations where they don't necessarily want to spend the time and invest in the configuration of the platform, etc., then I think a simpler solution is probably going to fit. However, I think AI is a differentiator in the marketplace for any organization that's adopting it. So we're going to see those organizations who do embrace it and to drive forward with it are going to see benefits. We're already seeing kind of stats on time saving. Some of the big kind of Microsoft itself obviously has used it in its customer service environment. MSC as a shipping company as well. Some of these bigger case studies that have come out, and they will have been on kind of virtually like DCCP, customer service now, Dynamics. There is a path to be able to move to the new SKUs, but yeah, I think it is a large and enterprise play, or for an organisation that's going to grow, as we know, and they have already put the foundations in place in terms of Microsoft technologies and want to drive this forward. So yeah, we've got a couple of situations. We've also got, you mentioned the kind of Q's Teams app as well, which is going to come and probably fill some of that lower end kind of requirements for contact center. So there's a low play, there's the medium ground where the customers looking to probably use omnichannel, do a few bits and pieces, and then there's kind of full bore. And I genuinely think that Microsoft are, this is an important play. Like you mentioned, kind of CEO Satya kind of has mentioned it in kind of keynote speech, and it is an investment path that they're going to be on. They're going to go for a bigger kind of slice of the marketplace. So yeah, exciting times.
Awesome, Chris. Well, thanks for giving us that kind of insight more from the ground with the customers. If people want to find out more, I know you're doing loads on LinkedIn around Dynamics 365 Contact Center.
Yeah, just look me up on LinkedIn and connect. I'm always happy to connect with people. I'm always looking for new content, either from Microsoft or elsewhere in the community where other peers are putting together content. I've created a dedicated LinkedIn group, which is called Dynamics 365 Contact Center Professionals. So if anyone wants to join that, only been going for like 2 or 3 weeks. It was I sent the thing out saying it was 300 members on Friday. It's now 400. So there's people joining. And it's just a great place to, it's not about promotion of the organization. It's about promotion of the product and knowledge. And just off the back of that, then, Microsoft themselves have some dedicated pages for the product. Do look at those, subscribe to their newsletters. If you're a modern work partner and you're thinking about stepping into the space, it just requires some time and effort, but the resources are going to be there. There's technical deep dives actually kicking off this month. There's 6 of them on contact center modernization run by Microsoft. So again, look those up or look at some of my posts. You'll find the links to register. But always happy to connect with people, Tom.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks for joining the pod. Really appreciate your point of view, and maybe we'll give it a little bit of time, and then maybe we can put in one of your customers and get a bit of a Christian customer perspective.
Yeah, that'd be great. Right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.